Hello, good evening. I would like to welcome you all to this evening's licensing subcommittee. At this point, I will go through the protocols for this evening's meeting. I understand that you have all received a copy of this before the meeting. However, just for clarity, I will run you through them. Can I ask that you only speak when invited to do so by the chair? If you wish to speak, please raise your hand and direct all communication via the chair. Please ensure that your mics are muted when you are not speaking, apart from the chair, who does not need to mute their mic at any stage to ensure that the meeting is conducted effectively. When speaking, please be succinct and do not exceed the allocated timeframes. If you're referring to a specific page or picture in the report, please refer to that page number. If you are having technical difficulties, please use the chat function within Google Meet to alert the meeting, or dial in on the phone number using the PIN provided within the invite or on the council's website within the meetings page. Please do not use the chat function for putting formal questions to the subcommittee. Any persistent disruptive behaviour will result in removal from the meeting. Once all applications have been considered, please leave the meeting promptly. There's only one application this evening, so once this application has been considered, can I ask that you leave the meeting promptly so that councillors will have the opportunity to deliberate and make a decision on the application. At this point, I would like to hand over to members and ask them to elect a chair.
Councillor Smith.
Thank you very much, Councillor Patrick. So maybe we'll just start by going round, just introducing ourselves very briefly. I'm Councillor Smith, Stoke Newington Ward. Maybe Councillor Patrick next.
Councillor Sean Patrick, Kings Park Ward.
Collier. Mute, take your mute button off.
Hi, good evening. My name is Collier Dimbangra, resident at 47 Dalston Lane.
Thank you. Amanda.
Amanda North from Legal Services, assisting members. Thank you.
Thank you. David.
David, Team Leader, Licensing Technical Support.
Mr. Newman.
Andy Newman, Licensing Agent for SET.
Manzella. Manzella.
Sorry, Manzella is here in the capacity of IT support.
Okay, cool. Mike.
Mike Smith, Licensing Officer.
The SET team.
I'm Roland. I do finance for SET.
I'm Ollie. I'm the Director of SET Tradings Limited.
Josh Field, Programme Director.
Okay, great. Shalina.
Hi, Shalina Jinnah, resident Dalston Lane.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much. So we know who everyone is now. You've got the agenda in the front of your pack. I think it's page, well, it's after the first sheet, basically, if you have a look at it. The chair has been elected, ultimately. So that's the first part of the agenda. Second part of the agenda is apologies for absence. Any apologies for absence? I think Councillor Conway has sent her apologies in. She couldn't make it. Any declarations of interest?
None.
Thank you very much. So now what we'll do is we'll outline the hearing procedure as to what happens. So we've appointed the chair. Step 2 is the licensing officer will outline the report. Step 3, the applicant will put forward their case. Step 4, we'll have responsible authorities. Step 5 is other persons will come in. Step 6 is a discussion. Step 7, closing remarks. Step 8, final clarification. And then step 9, consideration. Is that clear for everybody? Yeah? In each of these scenarios, the licensing officer has 5 minutes. The applicant has 5 minutes. Pretty much everyone's got 5 minutes, and we've got 15 minutes discussion. And obviously, it's at my discretion as to how that sort of materializes. So if we could just start with the licensing officer, please, that would be great. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So this is an application to vary an existing time-limited licence with hours as described in the reports on the agenda pages. The published agenda bundle didn't include Appendix D, the existing licence. I apologise for that. I hope all parties have now seen the full Appendix D. In addition to the agenda bundle, various other documents have been circulated. This includes video and photographic evidence which was submitted by the interested parties. That was done with their original representations. They've also, one of the interested parties has also submitted some additional evidence regarding a recent incident that took place at the premises, which I did circulate to all parties this morning. The applicants have now submitted a response to that additional evidence. Again, I hope all parties will have seen it. It has been sent to them. Representations, apart from the local residents, the representation remains from licensing service. I've nothing further to add, Chair. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you very much. So if we could have responsible authorities now. I think it's licensing primarily.
I think you hear from the applicant first, Chair.
The applicant,
Oh,
yes, I was
sorry.
just going to say the applicant is next.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, so applicant, please.
Thank you, Chair. This is an given time. This is an applicant set out application set out in the papers to get the same hours and benefits that they enjoyed in 2019. We have had extensive conversations with the police and also with environmental health in terms of noise, and both those parties are satisfied with our application with the amended hours. I'd also like to mention under section 182 Guidance Licensing Act, section 2 reinforces the support of aimed services for bars and other places, arts and cultural places. They are vitally important and should be principal aim for everyone involved in licensing work, which recognise the important role which pubs and other licensed premises play in our local communities. By minimising regulatory burden on businesses, encouraging innovation and supporting responsible premises. This premise is highly responsible, and they also do have a vibrant mix of scheduled entertainment. We do have deep concern, and we have put forward that these representations by these residents are vexatious, and my client is currently seeking a harassment order in terms of Mr. Collier. We also have deep concerns about any electronic video evidence or other digital evidence that has been supplied in this case, given some anomalies. And we would respectfully ask that we have lots of support, and I'd remind you that we also have support from a local resident and FAR School of Dancing, and that at no time have any residents been concerned, apart from the two present today, for any of the applications or variations. So we would suggest this is not in a special policy area, and that we would respectfully request that the application is granted. One note of caution: we understand that there's been an unfortunate incident, albeit in July, albeit for unlicensed activity, a private party. And whilst we have every sympathy towards Collier, nevertheless, we don't believe it should be part of that. And I'd also, given my past history with the police, offer a word of caution that once an allegation that is currently being investigated, there are concerns about prejudicing that investigation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Just wondering if Ollie and maybe Roland.
Sorry, Chair. Could
Yep,
we perhaps have Could we have our own legal advice from Amanda? Sorry to put her on the spot. On what Mr. Newman's just said. I'm sure Mr. Newman's right knowing his previous history, but I'd just like to, if that's possible.
What would you like clarification on, Councillor Patrick?
What Mr. Newman just said about allegations not coming into this.
Basically, I think what he's referring to is the fact that these allegations are currently under investigation, so therefore we have to treat it with caution, and therefore you can't. You have to tread carefully with it, because although they're allegations at the present time, there's no facts, there's no evidence to support that they're real. That you know, anything to support it at the present time. So you do have to treat it very cautiously and just listen to the information, but the weight that you attach to it is quite limited because of the investigation and the fact that you know, a determination hasn't been made on that investigation yet.
Okay, thank you very much,
Randy. Mr. Newman.
Yep, thank you for that. Would the applicants like to have a little chat about this? Do you wish to speak, anybody? Ollie or Roland? Can you hear me?
Yeah, just in support of what Andy said, this is to bring the hours back to how they were until we renewed the license in 2019. There was a problem with our last application, a human error, which meant that we applied for the wrong hours. So this is essentially to change the hours on Friday and Saturday night to what they were originally, in line with the police and the times that the police suggested.
Okay, great, thank you. So now I'd like to invite the licensing representative authority to come and speak, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. So the representation does begin on page 48 of the printed agenda, and essentially representation draws attention to the core hours policy contained within the council statement of licensing policy. So the hours being applied for do exceed those hours which are set out in the policy in the core hours approach. I will say, of course, that the license already exceeds those hours, and I think it is a material consideration that there was a license here at this address previously, which was which expired as has been referred to already today. So I'll leave it there for now, Chair, and we can discuss that further in the proceedings.
Okay, great. That's fantastic. Okay, so now on to the other persons. I'd like to call Collier, please.
Good evening. I'd like to make an objection, which I've previously made over the last couple of applications, due to public safety. Every time I've gone past the premises, you know, I've provided video footage, which you might have as reference, as well as photographs. There's always a minimum of at least 10 or 15 people on the road, sometimes up to at least 40 on the road. And sometimes I've had to cross into the road and walk into the road to, just to make my daily routine movements, whether I'm going to Dawson Junction or I'm coming home. Also, whilst this has been happening, I've never seen, sometimes apart from one lady who's security. So there's not been enough security staff policing or making sure that there's no issues surrounding, you know, the business interfering with public safety and general health and safety of the public. On a number of occasions, the premises has been closed, and I've always, when going home, I've always seen people congregating at the back of Tyson's Passage, coming through and for. And a number of times I've thought about inquiring, but I have not managed to inquire. But But sadly, again, more so, I think, because of this whole coronavirus situation, on Saturday night when I was coming home, I heard music, loud noise coming from the premises. The front door was closed. Came home, I spoke to my flatmate about the situation. I think I heard, noise. I didn't know what was going on. That I saw people at the back of Tyson's Passage. Because the hearing was forthcoming, she said to me, okay, well, why don't you just investigate? Originally, when I went to investigate, I walked past the front entrance. I still heard noise. And actually, I decided to go to just to Dawson, Kingston Road, because I wanted just to monitor and see whether, I know the government has allowed bars to open, but I wasn't sure that clubs, dancing and licensed venue in terms of capacity was okay. So I walked up to Kingston Road. I walked up to Dawson Superstore. I spoke to Alex, security there, and I saw how tightly professional their unit was. He had a face mask. Everything was in check. There's probably about 20 people indoors. Everybody was social distancing, sitting down, table service. I walked up to about high water, and I also saw the same thing. So I thought, okay, do you know what? I'll just walk back home, and I walked to the back of Tyson's Passage, and I saw that the back door was open. I heard noise, so I got my phone out. I walked into the premises, and I filmed my way walking down the corridor. I saw about 20 people on the right-hand side of one area, and I walked into the second area, and I saw about 15 to 20 people again, some dancing, some sitting down. And I got my phone out, and the reason why I got my phone out, I saw a couple of girls smoking indoors. So I started videoing them. I was in the property probably for about another minute, and two gentlemen came over to me. One said that he was his party, and do I know anyone here? So I said, no, I know the guys that run the venue. And he said to me, okay, well, if you don't know anyone here, you have to leave. So I said, okay. So I put my phone back into my pocket, and he said he was going to go and get security, which I thought, okay, fair play. So I followed him to the second area where there was more of a larger contingent. And the security pointed out to me was Ollie Tovin. And Ollie had a cigarette in his mouth, and there's another girl asking him for a lighter, and he was smoking with her. So I decided to get the phone out to video it and to record what I thought was a clear breach of licensing protocol. Even more so, I was really surprised that actually it wasn't even not only did I see customers smoking in there, I saw the licensee, who should be in charge of setting the right standards, also participating in I don't know, well, maybe, I don't know, illegal activity, so to speak, in terms of what I felt was responsible action. I got the phone out. I put the phone up. I was videoing what was going on, just to get, so because previously when I've complained about the back door being open, there's no security, there's a number of issues. I've always been told that I'm lying, I'm vexatious, I'm making it up. So I just decided, you know what, I think it's a safe bet to cover my own back, just to record what I saw. The minute I put the phone up, the gentleman who followed me and introduced me to Ollie, that stated that Ollie was the security, who said that he was his bar and he was his party, snatched the phone from my hand. I turned around, he ran briskly. I thought about chasing him, but because I know Ollie, I've also got experience in the industry. I felt, actually, do you know what? This is completely out of order. I've just been robbed. Somebody's grabbed my arm. Another one snatched my phone. And I'm not going to chase after him. I don't want any allegations or anything. I didn't speak to anybody in the premises. I didn't shout at any ladies. I didn't make anybody cry. I asked Ollie to call the police. He didn't call the police. I waited in the venue for over 10 minutes before another client gave me a phone to call the police. When I called the police, whilst I was in mid-conversation with the police for about 3 minutes, that's when one of their clients started calling the police again, making allegations that I had come in, I'd broken in, I'd punched someone in the stomach, I was intimidating people. Never happened. But throughout the whole period, I stayed quite confident because I thought there was CCTV in the premises, because I kept looking on my far left and the light was on. So I felt really confident that, you know, my behavior was impeccable. Followed him from one area of the room to anybody. All I did was video illegal activities that I felt quite impassioned by, because it was being committed by the licensee. And the place was completely trashed in terms of, it wasn't 20 people and a respectable party. There was drinks everywhere. It was just a free-for-all. And I felt that it was really important for me to capture it. And I think in capturing it, they felt quite threatened by the documentation of it. Hence the reason why I was robbed in the premises. I've given the police all my details. You know, I followed up, and I visited a neighbouring business, and they've seen CCTV of the robber running away from the scene around 12:43:07 seconds. You know, I've notified the police, and I completely understand from their perspective, they're gonna try their best to say, make me look like I'm vexatious, you know, I'm in the wrong. I'm in for the truth. I'm 38 years old, respectable, responsible. I've had a plethora of businesses. I don't have a criminal record. I don't have any issues with anyone in any public sphere. You know, I don't want to harass anybody. I've never harassed anybody in my life. I've got a history with the property, and these kind of situations that occur, especially where, you know, the applicants are who they are. Sometimes I feel that they're secret havens for drug dealing, illicit behavior, that sometimes the council sometimes doesn't have the personnel to take charge or take notice. I think the back door, we've spoken about this whole situation before. Councillor Gilbert, you're aware of that. There's no camera that's working. I left myself in a very vulnerable position, because throughout the time when I was in that CCTV was allocated, was reviewed, I was told there was no CCTV. I've left myself in a vulnerable position in terms of just basically trying to seek the truth. I've never gone into the property before. All previous occasions where I've seen public safety issues surrounding responsibilities, all I've done is stand away from the premises and take photographs. But because of the coronavirus pandemic that we've gone through, knowing that clubs should be closed, social distancing, no dancing and no dark spaces and should be open, and that's the reason why I entered the premises. If there were strict best practice, there should have been a security guard that should have said to me, oh, excuse me, it's a private party. I would not have made my way in. If there's issues surrounding the amount of people that were there, that you're querying my account, the Premier Inn has got CCTV in that area, as well as Tongbler and other businesses that could possibly, you know, quantify the amount of people that were present around Tyson's Passage. I feel completely violated with the process from this application to the previous one to the first one, because I think throughout I've just been told that I'm malicious. Nobody wants to listen to me, and I feel that, you know, the gentlemen are using their privilege, and the whole system is probably implicitly biased to be favourable to their business and their protocol. If they're not breaking the law and they're in clear light of working in terms of public safety and the licensing provisions, I would not be making any form of objection.
Okay.
Thank you so much for listening.
No, you're welcome, Collier. So I know that we're kind of focusing around the issue there that happened with you going into the premises, and obviously Amanda, in regards to, you know, how much weight we put on that for this application, you know, bearing in mind that it's kind of going through legal process, could you just advise on that just very briefly?
Yes, I mean, you can only listen to the allegations unless there's actual supporting evidence, witness statements. I mean, the police have not said anything about this at the present time, and from what Mr. Newman said, it's all being investigated. Is that correct, Mr. Collier?
That's correct.
Yeah. So,
I mean-
Collie, I just want to give you just a final opportunity just to step away from that episode for 1 second
Of
and
course.
just to start speaking about the venue and why you object to the venue there. I'll give you another kind of minute or so on just that point. I know you've spoken before, but I'm giving you another opportunity to sort of to put your views forward on that basis. Yeah?
Thank you, Councillor Gilbert. I mean, we've just gone through a pandemic, and the current licenses that they have, I feel, to be honest, is sufficient because they've been doing temporary events notices, and I think they've had, you know, minimal issues. It's to do with crowd safety, crowd control, and also I don't believe that there's been enough security that could prevent any issues or business that's occurring inside with the events affecting the public outside. Honestly, I think over the last 3 months, I mean, they got their license in November. You know, it's a quiet period. It's probably been the best that the area has been in terms of antisocial behavior, things coming down Tyson's Passage, you know, noise and the bins and everything else that business has brought to Dalston Lane, you know. So I think the 12:30 that they've had, you know, maybe going to 1 o'clock, I think is sufficient, because I think the issues that have been occurring is the fact that there's a grey area surrounding their later hours where they close the front door and open the back door and they go on to later hours. Also, the fact that potentially that they will have a later license will give them more opportunity to have larger scale events that will have a cumulative impact in the neighborhood. And, you know, I've given you so much information that I can give. I've only visited the area. I mean, the last photographs I sent you were on the 1st of December. The 1st of December was the day after the hearing. And you see the amount of people outside. They went to the hearing. They promised, Andy Newman promised that he will be facilitating training. You know, they said that the previous hearing, the hearing before, they also said that, and nothing's worked. Nothing's worked whatsoever. Same, we still see the same ample of people outside, antisocial behavior and issues where I'm really suspect about the whole integrity of their business surrounding drugs. And I was told by the ex-girlfriend of the guy that snatched my phone that, please take my hand, please don't call the police. I think my ex-boyfriend's on MDMA, and if you just come outside of the property, I'll make sure he brings you your phone back. You know, so you know, honestly, I'm just really sad about what happened on Friday night. I've given an ample opportunity in terms of objectivity as a passerby, as a previous licensee myself, to give the benefit of the doubt, to know that actually, do you know what? I'm also an artist, and you know, I like to give these young men an opportunity to prove themselves. And implicitly, over the past year, 3 years actually, 2.5, 3 years, you know, there's been issues after issues, and sometimes my words have not been sufficient because of my history with the property, and that's why I've given footage, video footage that I have not doctored, photograph that I've got no reason to, you know, I've got zero reason to doctor anything. I'm happy to hand that any device that I use to the police or anybody else to see whether I've doctored anything. If I'm walking past and I see antisocial behavior, is within my duty to be able to point it out. You know, in today's age where a lot of people are so busy, they're on their phones, they don't want to go through these issues that I'm going through with possibly, you know, making a representation. And we're in an environment where Dalston is fast moving, people are renting 6 months, back a sprint for a house, moving. So they don't have an interest within how the area is cultivated. I've lived in the area for over 8 years, Stoke Newington and in Dalston Lane for over 6 years. The reason why I was able to go and get CCTV to actually try and solve my own crime was because I've got a good relationship with everybody locally, and they were happy to help me so I can facilitate a logical conclusion. I've got no issues with the guys, and even with what happened with my phone being snatched, if I get the phone back, I'm happy not to proceed with any, you know, issues with that. All I would like is an apology, because I think basically they were scared of the information I had in there possibly been put forward to the licensing committee, and I would have done that. I would have the video out of Ollie. I would have submitted it, because I felt actually violated that everything I've spoken about in previous meetings was coming to fruition, and in the middle of it was not Josh, wasn't the gentleman who was the accountant. It was the licensee himself encouraging, participating in bad practice. You know, and I feel, you know, completely, yeah, I feel completely sad about the situation, and my vulnerability is really high at the moment because of my loss, and I'm quite emotive because of the situation, in terms of even feeling that, you know, if it was anybody else, in terms of talking about racism, any other potential business or occupier, maybe the police might have done more, and maybe even this current application might not have been going as far as it's gone because of previous evidence which I've submitted. You know, it's quite brave of me to even walk into a premises. I've always put myself, you know, I wear my heart on my shoulder. I'm really, you know, passionate. I'm calm, and I'm quite balanced. I made myself vulnerable, but I trust my behavior. There's no way I'll walk into a property where there's a private party, intimidate anybody, because I know what will happen. If I showed probably a little bit, a teeny bit of aggression, again, in terms of talking about racial profiling, I'm sure I would have been arrested. If I gave chase to the guy that stole my phone, you know, there would have been another story of, you know, he's come in, he's tried to mug one of our clients. So I was really balanced in terms of what happened on Saturday night. And in previous situations when I've walked past, all I've provided you is evidence of issues surrounding lack of responsibility, security issues, public safety. And I suppose that's all I have to say, Mr. Gilbert, and whoever, the rest of, you know, the committee that's listening.
Okay, great. Thank you very much for that, Collier. So, folks, look, we'll go to point of clarification after we hear from Shalina, and then we'll move into a discussion phase where it'll be a bit more of an open forum. So, could we now move to Shalina, please? Shalina?
Hello, hi.
Hi there. Yeah, if you'd like to
Hi.
make your representation, please, that'd be great.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Gilbert. My name's Shalina Jinnah. I'm a resident on Dalston Lane. I have had several concerns about the applications that the applicants have put forward over time. Mainly these relate to blocking of the pathways. I think I've made that clear in every hearing that we've had, that as I walk past, I've had to walk in the road. I found it quite intimidating that there are between 20 and 30 people outside the front of set. I don't think it's safe, and I think there needs to be better crowd control. Councillor Gilbert, you'll know I've made that point every time that we've had a hearing. I think you've been at every single one. The other councillors, I think, are new to this matter. So I also have concerns about the applicant's ability to manage the venue. I think things have been calmer since the hours have been reduced. But there are a comedy of errors. You know, Andy Newman has every hearing said that the staff will be trained, that there'll be increased security. I don't really ever see any evidence of that. There's human error on the last license application. It just seems that there's a bit of a laissez-faire attitude when it comes to details and matters that are quite important. I was actually I did put in photographic evidence of procedural issues for the last hearing, which was due to take place, I think, 6 or 7 weeks ago, because the actual license that had been published on the door of set was it was not legible. It was completely faded. I think there was some allegation again that evidence had been doctored. I'll be you know, honest with you. I submitted that. I took the photos myself. I haven't doctored any evidence. I don't even know how to doctor it. I'm a solicitor. That isn't something I would engage in any event. I just found, again, it was a sort of process had not been followed, and again, it's been corrected, but it just sort of gives me the impression that you know, is management capable of running an establishment in this current climate that will protect and see to public safety both within the venue and outside of the venue. I've always also been concerned about litter outside, which there has been a reduction over the last few months. Obviously, the last few months everything's been closed. But prior to that, but yeah, I did have concerns that, you know, 3 days after the hearing, there's that 20 or 30 people outside the front door, and it seems to me that there's one thing being said in the hearing, and then there's another thing actually happening on the ground. And I think further care needs. You know, I would expect there to be some responsibility being taken there. Likewise, I am concerned about the allegations that have been put forward in last minute in evidence. I appreciate you can't take it too seriously. I think, you know, it's one side saying X, the other side saying Y. I appreciate it's very difficult, but I think it would have probably been a good opportunity for the licensees to take the higher ground and assist and try and come to some resolution, rather than it turning into a sort of a he said, she said. Whoever's at fault here, you know, I don't know. It just seems to be quite a worrying incident. Allegations on both sides, and as a caretaker of the people who are in the premises or anyone who's around, and I think the licensees have an obligation there, and I don't really see that that's being taken seriously. I own the property in Dalston Lane. I've lived here for 6 years, and I am concerned. And I do feel that if that was a premises, I appreciate it's not in the special policy area, but other premises in Dalston are run incredibly professionally. And I do feel that because of the demographic of the licensees and perhaps their clientele being middle class and a creative crowd, and, you know, I'm going to hold my hand up. You know, a few years ago, I perhaps would have been in that demographic myself. I just don't think that they're held to the same level of responsibility that other venues in Dalston are. And I think it's seen that, you know, they're quite harmless, they're well-spoken young men, they're doing arts, you know, artsy stuff, it's creative. How much harm can really, you know, be done by this venue? And the reality is, if, you know, they're responsible for a large number of people, and if that's not taken seriously, then not only people inside the venue, but people outside are put at risk. The other point I just wanted to make is I've also seen people urinating across the road from there on my way home, which I've actually seen them come out of set and go across the road to urinate. It's those type of public antisocial behaviour, public disorder, whatever you want to call it, that concerns me. I don't want that on anyone's doorstep, but I certainly don't want it on mine. And I think that's fair enough. I think that's a fair objection to have as a resident. I'm a woman, I walk home on my own. You know, maybe that's not the safest at some points, but I don't want to feel that there's people doing stuff like that. And no, I don't have evidence of that, because I didn't think it was appropriate to take video or pictures of that happening. So that's not something that I would ever do. But, you know, it has happened. There is noise on occasion. I appreciate that, again, is the a byproduct of having a venue like that. But again, as hours have been reduced, it's been less. There's still, you know, people loud music I can hear sometimes. I also hear people coming home who are drunk. Again, you know, it's just something that I think could be contained when people are coming home. And I sort of feel like 12:30, 1 o'clock, it seems to be what other venues on the same road are being held to. There's been a pub opened on the corner of Dalston Lane and Kingsland Road. They've got a license. It goes to 12, I think. I think the shop across the road, restaurant or bar, has gone for a license for the same time. And I just think it's more appropriate. I feel more comfortable with that as well.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, I'm just going to give everyone the opportunity, just for point of clarification, not discussion, because we're going to do that in a minute. Any point of clarification? I mean, I've got one myself. I just want to clarify with licensing that this is in the SPA, in the Dalston SPA. Is that correct?
No, it's not in this Dalston SPA. It's just outside the SPA.
It's not, because on the application, unless I'm reading it wrong, it seems to imply that it is. But anyway, it's not. So that's good. So that's my point of clarification. Anybody else?
Yeah, you are correct. That it does say that on the application, but Mr. Smith has clarified it.
Okay, great, thank you. Councillor Patrick,
Yeah, sorry. It's a question to Selena. She says she can hear music and people. I just wondered, can she hear is it the music from this club that she can hear? And is it can she hear it in her home rather, or is she talking about on the street?
Hi, Councillor Patrick. Am I on?
Hi.
Yeah, sorry. I just wanted
You
to.
said you could hear music.
Yes, I can hear it from my home sometimes.
Do you live going towards Dalston or going towards Hackney Central from the club, from Step?
I live literally about 3 minutes from the club. If you're standing outside the venue and you turn left and you walk for about 2 minutes, you'll come to my place.
So Hackney Central. So I'm bad at left and rights. That's why I said towards Hackney Central.
Yeah, so towards Hackney, but Hackney Central's like very, really far down. It's
I know that. I'll make that way rather towards
that
Dalston
direction.
Junction.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That's it.
I know where you live now. Yeah. Thank you. Roughly.
Hopefully, no one else does.
Any further point of clarification before we go into the discussion phase?
Can I ask a question? Am I allowed, or is it for just committee?
Yes, go ahead.
Just to clarify my understanding, are that the hours that are being sought are now till 2 o'clock on the weekend? Is that right?
On a Friday and Saturday until midnight on a Sunday.
Okay.
So there's half an hour less on a Sunday, but an hour and a half extra on a Friday and Saturday is what they're requesting.
And
all the other hours are the same. The start times are slightly different.
Yeah.
You know, from I think from the old one was 12. I think the new one's 1500 or something like that.
And they would then close at 2, would they?
Half an hour later, I believe. Is that correct? Yeah. Mike, is that correct? Half an hour later?
Yes, that's correct.
Right, brilliant.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, that's great. So I'm just going to open it up to the floor now and just start with the discussion. I don't know if anybody wants to chip in. I mean, it'd be nice to maybe hear from the set people maybe to start with.
Chair, Mr. Collier wanted to ask a question as well.
Okay. Collier, we'll take you maybe after set, if that's okay.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. If I could just respond to some of the points made by the two residents. Firstly, from Collier, I'll just deal with the ones which are relevant to this application first, rather than the situation on Sunday morning. The video evidence that was submitted, I don't know if everyone had a chance to look at what we responded. That was from before our last application, so in early November. So I don't see that's relevant. He speculated that we never have enough security. I'm more than happy to be forthcoming with our with my correspondence with our SFA security team. We every night that we've been open, we only open 4 events. So every night we have been open, we've had the appropriate number of security. There doesn't seem to be. Sorry, I've just written those things down here. And also with Shalina's suggestion of these words like intimidated and there being 40 to 50 people outside, just there's no evidence of that, and no other resident has submitted anything similarly. So, and in terms of the music being able to be heard from our flat, it's total fabrication. You can't hear it from across the road. We made sure of that when we first moved in 2.5 years ago.
Also, just quickly on the 1st of December, there was speculation by Collier that the night afterwards, on the 1st of December, there was an event. We've looked through our calendar and we weren't open on that night. So, so that's after our last license. We'd also like to put in the fact that we did actually, so in the last license, we said we'd do some extra measures to try and accommodate some of the issues that were raised, and we believe that we've done that. So we've spoken with Ollie's been speaking with the council about putting up a road barrier to make sure that the 10 people who are allowed outside do not spill over into the road. And I think we've just got, before we shut, we just got confirmation that we're allowed to do that from Hackney.
Yeah, correct.
And further to that, we've doubled up on on the amount of security we had. So we had 2 members of security staff per 100 people always, which is more than needs to be the case.
Yeah, as outlined as well, it's an incredibly busy road. There's residential parts of the towards the Hackney Central end, and once again, no evidence has been submitted by anyone other than the 2 residents here who know each other. In terms of the issue on Sunday morning, I'd rather not discuss it, given it's of no relevance to this application. I can be forthcoming with any CCTV that will show that the number of people that were there, the fact that there was no unlicensed activity whatsoever, no alcohol was served on the premises. There was no entrance fee, there was no hire fee. It was an old friend's, university friend's birthday party. We had a small number of guests. So he said from 2025, this is an email which I've sent to all of you. There was no more than that across the evening. There was a hand sanitizing station. And as I say, I can be forthcoming with any CCTV to prove that there was no unlicensed activity. The one problem which I am chasing up with in communication with the police about is the fact that someone who's not allowed on the premises managed to break onto the premises and film people.
And it's worth pointing out just briefly that Mr. Dimbangur knows that he's been banned from the premises based on previous behaviour, intimidatory behaviour to our members of staff, and so he knows that he's not allowed to be there. And further to that, having a private no licensed activity small party for an old friend, we spoke previously to Poppleton Allen, our legal advisors, and we were told that was okay to do.
And it has no bearing on this application.
Okay, Councillor Patrick, would you like to come in with a few questions here? I've got a few questions, but if you come in with a few questions.
Yeah, to the applicant. I'm glad you've got the permission for the road. Sorry, the barrier. But we've heard, the video was the previous you getting the license, but we've heard allegations that there are people outside blocking the pavement. Are you denying that there's never people outside your club blocking the pavement? And you said you only open when you have events. Does that mean that you're not open every weekend, or how often do you open?
We tend to be open 5-6 days a week, but it's only when we've got an event programmed. Otherwise, we end up. The whole point in the venue is that it's we run an arts program which Josh curates, and so we only open for whatever it might be, performance, poetry, live music, whatever it may be. Our dispersal policy dictates that we have a wind down period. We have appropriate number of door staff, and any excess people are asked to move either down towards Hackney Central or up towards Dalston Junction when leaving the premises.
What about people outside smoking? How many people outside smoking do you have at the moment?
We're allocated 7.
And do you allow people to take their drinks out, or
No.
No, 7 smokers. And do you have a time when you don't allow people in after, or could people come in till you're midnight at the moment, aren't you?
Yeah, we suggested talk to police about, well, this was when we applied, we were initially applying for later hours on this, and then we would have a admittance policy only from a certain time. Any conditions like that, we're more than happy to discuss whatever would ease. Maybe
we'll talk about it, but it might be worth thinking about if the other establishment, if we do grant the licence, if the other establishments around by you have got 12 o'clock, and you've got 2 o'clock, if you allow people to come in, you're gonna get a lot of people who've been drinking already elsewhere all night,
Well,
and
sorry to interrupt.
maybe intoxicated.
Yeah, our general kind of reasoning for being there is that people tend to only come to the space to enjoy whatever night we've curated. So we're more than happy to only have an admittance policy that admits people who are there for the event. We don't tend to get any kind of late night revelers coming for a final drink at all, and we can implement some kind of policy where only people who've been there from the beginning of the evening can be readmitted. Yeah, that's.
Would you be happy to have a condition along those lines, though, in your license?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. Councillor Patrick, do you need any more questions at all?
No, I think that's it for the moment. I'm sure something will come back to me in a minute.
I'm going to use my privilege just to ask you some questions. I mean, I'm a little bit.
Mr. Newman wants to come in, by the way, Chair, in case you
Okay.
can't see him.
Oh, okay, Mr. Newman, you come in, and then I'll ask my questions after.
Thank you, Chair. I did have my hand up even for points of clarity earlier.
Sorry, I didn't see you on my screen, I'm afraid.
Because a lot has been alleged or adduced, and I think to do my job properly for my clients, they should be responded to. And plus, with any conditions, I believe I should be advising my client on them. I know they said Popston Allen, but that's because they're responsible people with the British Institute of Innkeepers. So they took advantage of the opportunity of getting legal advice on top of mine, which is very nice. Okay, so but hey, all the better. So what I was going to ask, we're always in first names, but apart from me. So with Shalina's comments, a solicitor, points were made about the running of set, and also points were made around rather a sweeping comment about all of Dalston, I felt. So it was inferred, firstly, that every other premises in Dalston is well run, which I would certainly dispute. Is there any evidence may I ask to say that every other premises in Dalston is well run? That could be adduced from Shalina.
Sorry, you are asking me to respond to that?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, well, I don't go around taking pictures of every place in Dalston. I've just been to a few places, and I think they've got security outside, they're smart, there's orderly outside, there is a barrier around the smokers. I don't generally have to walk in the road when I'm passing. I haven't been inside set, so as far as inside goes, I don't know, but I'm just talking about where I pass and go. So, that's my opinion.
Okay. No, thank you for clarifying, because you did say something quite broader earlier, and you also...
I think that was actually Mr. Collier.
Oh, right.
Sorry, Mr. Newman. I think Mr. Collier talked about walking round and visiting other premises, I think last weekend, about that they were well run. I think something like, he said something about a couple of other premises that I can't remember the names of them, but yeah.
I think both mentioned it, actually. And also, there's this suggestion that because my 3 clients here are middle class and creative, despite the fact that with the events that they create, they have a wide mix of people that come to their events. There's a suggestion that they're given preference from the authorities. There's also hearing people coming home drunk. So if you're in your own premises, how do you know they particularly come from set? There's comments about the pubs open on the corner till midnight, but that's a brand new place, whereas this premises has been run for quite a period of time. So I'd just question those comments, please.
Okay. Thank you.
And then with Collier, firstly, Collier, as he said, was involved with this premises before. Indeed, he used to run this space before these guys came in. He's been told not to ever enter the premises. And as a former licensee should know that there's no power to enter to investigate. Excuse me. The numbers with dispute during coronavirus quite sensibly says the place has been closed, and that's put enormous pressure on my clients, you can imagine. To answer one question, nightclubs can't open, but other spaces can. However, to expand, Sunday was a private party. Evidence has been shown been sent in the appendix today to show the guy who had the party, the effect of Collier photographing people despite being asked to leave in that party, private party, and also it's put in there that the police were contacted by Ollie, and Ollie has taken every reasonable step to help get that phone back, because you know we don't feel good about that at all. Shouldn't happen to anybody. And also Ollie has found some CCTV to speak to the police and called the police on the night. There's a suggestion that there's secret havens for drug dealing and illicit behaviour, and yet the police, and litter indeed, but the police, environmental health, environmental waste, don't find that. They're happy with the application as it stands. So is there any evidence of this apart from yourself, Collier, and Shalina?
Would you like to? Am I allowed to address that point?
Yeah, go on.
Oh, fantastic. Regards to issues surrounding Sunday morning's incident, you know, I'm pretty much speechless about what happened to me in terms of the robbery. If I retrieve the phone back, I'll be able to show you exactly what I documented in the venue, and I'm not lying about anything I've raised. You know, I'm completely honest in terms of what I'm advocating. In terms of the reason why I walked up to Dawston Kingsland to view other venues was because I was unsure whether nightclubs were allowed to be open. I knew of issues that, you know, venues, bars are allowed to open, but it's only supposed to be table service only. And what I viewed when I arrived at set, and this is the first time I've ever gone into that premises, there's never anything, the police has never been called before of me harassing any member of staff or any security whatsoever. Even the security lady that's normally there, which is the only one I've seen. I've seen a couple of guys when she's not working, but I've never had any issues with them whatsoever. So I'm really quite lost in terms of the allegations of harassment or anything else that's been lodged in terms of actually me being vexatious. And being a former licensee of the premises and somebody that, yeah, had 4 other shops in the area. I had 4 other premises for 5 years, 6 years and 7 years in the area. You know, I had a gallery for 7 years, I had a cafe, cafe across the road, which later had a license for about 8 years. You know, I do care about how the area has been cultivated. And if I've seen something and I believe that the law's been broken, I'm within my rights to lodge a complaint. When the incident occurred to me inside Dalston Lane, I was really, really sad about how it was dealt with. If you look at the police registry of calls, I made the first call about 10 minutes after the incident happened. When I asked Ollie to call the police, he refused to. All he kept doing was going back and forth, trying to tell people to leave the venue. 100%. And I'll be so happy to see what CCTV he's got that is given to the police, because I'm hoping that actually that provides a light on the whole situation. I did not shout at anybody. I did not intimidate anybody. I was super vulnerable again as a Black African Caribbean male in a very vulnerable position where I was told that people were drunk, people were taking drugs, and they're going to be in a position where they want to protect that haven that's been provided them by the venue. So they're going to make any accusation to say that I was in the wrong, to actually so that they can shift the blame on the incident. I would have calmly have left with the evidence, which I would have forwarded it to you guys, but my phone was snatched from my hand. And that's the reason why I stayed in the venue to call the police, because I felt that was the safest and calmest thing to do in light of what occurred in the situation. Previously, I've always walked past. They have CCTV, no other complaints has been lodged. Never talked to any member of staff, never been inside. Like I said to you, it's only because of the pandemic, the noise I heard from the front, the fact that in previous hearings, they've been saying they don't do private parties, the back's not open, and I wanted just to prove that point. And the fact that they don't have cameras there left me in a very vulnerable position. And it could have been another person that would have gone in, caused an accident, maybe hit someone or done anything, and made their way at the back of Tyson's Passage. And they won't be able to catch that person. You know, so it could have been a lot worse in terms of situations. You know, so I would like that to be addressed. And I think this is also now, as this is a third hearing, a clear opportunity for licensing enforcement to review the cameras front, back, and within the premises, especially if they're getting a new license, to make sure the cameras are working. And if there's any issues surrounding private parties or things being done at the back of the premises, which is not licensed, that is addressed. I think enforcement should visit the premises and work with Ollie Tobin to make sure that he knows the right standards that Hackney would like to be judged in terms of premises that have had issues of problems that are getting new licenses.
Thank you.
Okay, great.
And I'd also like to say, I'm sorry that your phone was snatched. Obviously, in law, they need to develop whether there's mens rea. And I thank you for saying there have been minimal issues. That was very kind of you when you spoke earlier. And thank you also for responding with me or speaking with me during the during the process when we discussed licensing as well. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you.
Right. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Yeah, this is a question really to set. I'm a little bit concerned about the alleyway, and I am concerned about the back of the venue, and just the door at the back of the venue as well, and kind of what goes on there, and how vulnerable that is for people, just anybody, to walk in whenever they feel like it if you're doing an event. Can you just talk about that really, and just ways that you can mitigate what's going on there? Can you describe what's going on at the back of the property, please? Yeah, I think we talked about the alleyway before, and I believe, is there an alleyway on both sides, or is it just on the left-hand side?
An alleyway to the left-hand side as you look at it, but that's
as you look at it, yeah. So is there a door there? There used to be a door or a blockage there, didn't there?
That's currently blocked. The side alleyway is currently blocked.
Right. So how did how did Collier get down the back then?
About the back perpendicular to the space, which is called Tyson Passage.
Yeah, so you can access that from properties behind, basically, yeah.
Yes, yeah. So that's where, well, with regards to Tyson Passage or Tyson Passage, I've got a long-standing email thread with Hackney Council about I've been responsible for clearing up the entire space. It took about a year and a half for it to happen, but just to make safe the area. We never have exits or entrances when we're open to the public. That doorway rather is never used. We have CCTV pointing at it, so for any events in which take place, you'll be able to see that no one goes in or out through there. The only reason it was utilised on Sunday morning was that if people wanted to buy snacks or drinks or whatever, because as I say, we weren't selling anything, there was no licensed activity. Rather than lifting up and down the roller shutter each time, people could just pop in and out. Obviously, no one expecting for an unlicensed or unwelcome person to sneak in. But ordinarily, whenever we're open to the public, we never utilise that door. Yeah, it's just used as a fire escape. And I'd say we've got CCTV pointing straight out, which I'm more than willing to show any police. Colleague, you're shaking your head. I can prove that there's a camera focusing on that back door. Just could I just respond briefly to a couple of Collier's comments? Is it a serious accusation that people were taking drugs on the premises? If so, that's incredibly serious, and it's absolutely not true. But we will be taking that very seriously. We, as I say, my main issue is the fact that someone who I've spent numerous hours sending documentation to the council about the vexatious nature of the individual. He's not allowed on the premises. He's been made aware of that fact, and as I say, I can show the CCTV footage which shows him coming in. I was then informed by people in the venue that he was filming them against their will. There was no aggression. I then said to him, if you don't leave the premises now, I will call the police. And I have record on my phone that at 12:50 in the morning, I contacted the police and they came. I've got the CAD reference number. They came on my request, and I spoke to the officer's name, whose name escapes me, but I can find.
Okay, Mr. Newman.
I'm very sorry, Chair. I just remembered something I just wanted clarification on. And if I could ask you to turn to one of the representations made against the application to vary the licence. And it's the paragraph that starts in terms of concerns, which is the second to last paragraph.
Yeah, what page is that, please?
Well, I've printed everything else. I've got 1/2, Appendix C1.
Oh yeah, I've got it.
And it's Appendix C1.
Yeah.
So, and second to last paragraph.
Yep.
It starts with in terms of concerns.
Yep.
And then, sorry, I'm not very technical, but it does say, for example, towards the end of the paragraph, says, for example, ends in lane, starts in lane. For example, on 1st of December, 2 days after previous hearing of the applicant's previous application, which took place on the 28th of November, 2019, I went outside to noise at approximately 5 AM, and there were more than 30 people outside the venue crowding the pavement. I attached video evidence to this email. And my question is, Hackney IT have confirmed that that video is for the 6th of November 19, not the 1st of December or indeed the 28th of November. And
Mike, can you clarify that, please? Hello, Mike? Did you hear that? Did you hear that?
Yes, I did hear that. The IT department did confirm that the video had been date stamped for early November. They did say that that's what it looked like.
Okay. That's noted.
So I noticed Collier's got his hand up. I mean, I'd obviously, just before he responds, I would also say that under Section 158 of the Licensing Act, it is an offence to recklessly or intentionally make any false statement in regards to a licence variation. But it may be an innocent mistake. I really don't know.
Thank you for that. Just to clarify to everybody, I'm using an iPad and I can't see people's pictures. So I'm really grateful for you to help indicate who wants to speak, because I couldn't see that Collier wanted to speak, and I couldn't see you earlier on, Andy. Okay. So apologies for that, but that's just technology. Collier, do you want to come back?
Well, I didn't realise you was on an iPad, Gilbert.
Yes.
Sorry.
Just to clarify the point, so on my notes, I've made the 1st of December 2019. The event which I photographed and did a video of was on the 30th of the 11th, 2019. So it was a Saturday night after the hearing on the Thursday. I'm certain as to be sure, 100%. I'm happy to submit the mobile phone, which is my friend's. It's not mine personally, that showed me, just showed all the details towards that. I don't have any issues with submitting the phone to Hackney IT, Mike Smith, or any other law enforcement agency. I'm not in the business of breaking the law or fiddling with anything that's going to get me an unfair. There's no need whatsoever. I said the 1st of December, which is the Sunday morning. The photographs which are submitted happened on the 30th, which is the Saturday night.
Yep.
All right.
Yep. Thank
So
you.
The venue was open. I did photograph and take the video, a live video of what was happening across the road. And you can quantify the people yourselves from the video which I submitted.
Okay. Councillor Patrick.
Yeah, I want to just really get back to the application rather than what happened last weekend, which
agreed.
We've been told to just not, well, it's an allegation. But Mr. Colley, I've seen the video and the photo, and I suppose it's to you and your friend Shalima. Sorry, I've forgotten your name, and you're not on the screen anymore. Do apologise, but you haven't got any. You haven't given us any other evidence, but from what you've been saying, is that this happens all the while, and it's a regular occurrence. That there's lots of loud music outside. There's people. There's antisocial behaviour. I just wondered why. You seem to be respectable, good citizens trying to help the community by pointing this out to us. As you say, Mr. Colley, you're an ex-licensee yourself. Why you haven't got any more evidence? I suppose why this one thing which is almost a good 6 months ago now, and I realise the venue's been closed since March, but it would have been open probably all through December with, I imagine, lots of parties and late night events and whatever. And I just find it a bit strange that from what you say, there's lots going on, but there doesn't seem to be lots of evidence.
Can I answer your question, madam?
You can.
Okay. Honestly, I well document my whole personal movements and journey. I don't own a mobile phone in terms of walking past and taking pictures. 9 times out of 10, when incidents have occurred, I've had to come home, borrow my flatmate's phone, and the pictures that were taken on the 30th was from my flatmate's phone that documented exactly what I saw took place on that Saturday evening. That's why I'm a bit saddened about the whole situation surrounding harassment. I never tried to go out looking to take photographs or find reasons to bring any vexatious allegations towards Set. The reason why I went out that Saturday was it was 2 days after the hearing, and I heard, again, all these promises. Everything that was said then was said now. And even the conditions that Councillor Gilbert is asking for, how are you going to prevent people drinking at the Queen Victoria coming by at your venue past 1 o'clock? The Set guys are saying, oh, we'll make sure that only people in the venue are allowed to actually be in the venue. All these promises fall by deaf air. And the fact that it was 2 days after the hearing, that's the reason why I went out that particular night to say, okay, look, let me see what's going on. Let me see if they're abiding by the rules, because the incident which I raised previously, which, to answer your question, I've given you previous documents of people outside. Last hearing, I gave you about 5 or 6 photographs.
I wasn't at the last hearing, so
Right.
I can only take into account the evidence given for this hearing.
The previous hearing, if Mike Smith would like to go back to account, I gave 5 or 6 evidence of, again, the same contraventions. From the first hearing, the original hearing, also, you've got all this at your disposal.
I'm sorry, I don't have that information.
So the first hearing,
I think those hearings have happened and decisions have been done. We're hearing this application now. So
Well,
I'm
you can
trying
see-
to ask you to give me the evidence that you've told me about,
So the
so I
evidence.
can understand what you're saying. But I'm just asking if you've got any more evidence. That's all.
The main, just to complete
I
my
want to
point.
be fair to you.
100%. 1230 license. Human error was a godsend in terms of actually implicit material and any formative representation to show irresponsible behavior. You know, they've not had the opportunity to do later events. And honestly, that's exactly what's going to happen with any license that goes past 1 o'clock. With the history of the licensee, the previous information I've sent, not only in this hearing, the forthcoming hearings. The last license was obtained during Christmas period, end of December, end of November. And we've had quite a quiet year in which there's not been enough events there for me to actually be able to provide any situations. That's what I've said. I've been happy with what's happened so far, apart from the incident which took place over the weekend. And that's the first opportunity they've had to open since the pandemic and the quiet Christmas period.
Are you happy, Councillor Patrick?
Yeah, I just want to come back, sorry, to the weekend. I don't want to go into details of the phone. But our licensing, what's the word? I'm happy that this was a private event that took place.
Sorry, can you just reiterate that? I didn't quite catch
Sorry,
that.
I just want to go back to the weekend. I'm not interested in, I'm not concerned about the phone, but we've heard that it was a private event and that there was no licensable activities taking place.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to clarify with the council's licensing service or legal that they are happy that this is what was happening, that it wasn't open as to the public.
Yep.
Chair.
I mean, Set said they'd sought legal advice from Poppleton and Allen. I wonder if they've got do they have an email or
Mike, would you like to?
Well, from the way
took legal advice.
Right. From the way it's been described, it does sound like it was probably a private event, but I don't think we have any particular knowledge of the event ourselves. But just as described, it does sound like it may well be a private event.
Thank you.
And just on this point, Amanda, I would like just to ask you a point of clarification as our lawyer. Obviously, there are social, there are sort of lockdown rules that were in place at that moment, one of which socializing indoors in groups of more than 2 households. Anyone in your support bubble counts as 1 household. This includes when dining or going to the pub. You should not do those things. Does that have any relevance to this case at all? I don't think it should, but I'm just interested what you think.
I don't think it's relevant to the application itself as such. It is something that's enforced at the moment, but the actual enforceability of it's very difficult for the council or for officers to actually enforce against that. So unless they know about it or actually come across it, it's very difficult to take enforcement action on that. It would have to be a separate enforcement action anyway. Whereas the application, you can only take what evidence is presented today.
Yeah.
For you.
So this is an issue that we can't really pursue in a way. We can't really go down this road, really.
Well, it's not ideal if they have been in breach of the regulations at the time. It's not ideal, and they know that, or they would be aware of that, because it's about them also demonstrating that they are able to comply with the licensing conditions and the licensing objectives, basically. So it is important for them to demonstrate that. So
yeah, and would it be okay for me to ask them that question as to why they felt it was good to do that?
Yes, I do think I think this is their opportunity. Given that event has taken place, and although we're not focusing on that event specifically, that they need to demonstrate to members that they that they are responsible and they are prepared to comply with the conditions and the requirements of the licensing objectives. And this may have been an isolated incident. I don't know. You know, I think they need to explain it as it's been brought into the arena. Although, you know, we're not here to judge them on that specifically.
May I come in there?
Mr. Yes. Sorry, yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate my clients chomping at the bit to speak, but I think with respect to Proper St Allen, I think I ought to reply to this. My clients state that this was a private party, and it appears to be the case. However, so that given that conditions on the license don't apply, there is the broader issue of whether they were compliant with the coronavirus provisions. That said, having sat through a conference the other day with Gary Grant and everybody, the barristers, it would appear that there are disconnects. So between the law, between what is guidance and what is law, between regulations, and it is a very complex area indeed, and possibly not one necessarily to thrash out in a variation here.
No.
No, thank you.
I would like to give them an opportunity just to kind of talk about that very briefly. Yeah, I'm not going to really get bogged down on this one.
No, of course. I mean, obviously, as said, we're really looking forward to opening. We want to get our program back up and running. We want to essentially start trying to generate some income again. Owing to the fact that the government guidelines stipulate that we won't be able to have the amount of people that we'd like to have in our venue until, say, October, we won't be able to have socially distanced events. We're going to have to remain closed, which is a great shame and is a financial strain on us. Anyway, but we're not doing that.
I just want you to justify why you had this event. Just very briefly, why you had it. Bearing in mind that socializing indoors was restricted to 2 households. Yeah, and parties. Essentially, not to hold any parties where it's difficult to maintain social distancing.
Sure,
it's very important. It's very important. It allows us to you know, you're a responsible license holder.
Yeah.
So I just want you to demonstrate your responsibility, really, and if you're fit for purpose.
Yeah. Okay. He's an old friend of mine. He suggested that owing to the lifting of some of the lockdown measures, that he celebrate it at his flat, and then I'd already bubbled with him and several other people, and he said, "Is there any chance actually we could use Set? It would make it more affordable than going to the pub, and in terms of social distancing, we could have it over the 2 rooms, listen to some music, people could bring their beers in, put them on ice, people could bring in some food, and we'll and as I say, have a hand sanitizing station there, 4 toilets set up with all using different cubicles, etc. It was, and as I say, with he said, and it's in the email, with 20 people, 20 to 25 people across the evening. And I, bearing in mind everything that's happened, I of course wouldn't do that again. I wish in many ways, I wish I'd just said, let's go to another pub, and you know. But yeah, that's what we did. And we tried to put in as many measures as possible to make it safe for everyone.
Yeah. Okay. That's fine. Thank you. Anybody want to come in?
And just to clarify, with absolutely no licensable activity taking place at all.
Yeah, I think we've got that.
Gilbert, can I make?
Sorry.
Do you mind if I quickly make more of a general point about?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
You know, I just wanted to say, in general, since we opened in 2017, we've had an incredible track record with residents and local businesses. And actually, the only issue we've ever hit is Collier himself making, in our opinion, vexatious representations against every single application we've ever submitted, and also being a burden on our security, constantly filming them, constantly filming us, constantly harassing us. And we know that Collier himself and Shalina are friends, because we actually met Shalina the very first time in Collier's establishment across the road. She worked behind his bar. So we know that they're essentially colluding together to essentially belittle every aspect of our organisation from the beginning. And if that wasn't the case, why is it only ever them that are complaining. No other local business, local resident ever put any representation in place against what we're doing. So it's literally been an unrelenting attack on us personally as well. Collier actually said to me in person, I will make your life as difficult as I possibly can throughout this entire process at the very beginning. It's been a personal vendetta, and we are obviously now trying to go down a legal route of getting a restraining order, but we're still in the same situation of every single time we end up going back to a hearing, we waste everyone's time. We do have issues we want to address, and we are addressing them, but we are only human. And obviously we have had errors in the past, and we do address them. We are a professional organisation. We have 5 centres around London. We're supported by the GLA, and we're actually quite a respected organisation within the arts community in London. And we are professionally managed. This is a venue that obviously there are human errors. We do make mistakes, and we do address them. Just like having a rope barrier outside our venue will address the error that we made, that Collier unrelentingly documented. But if there isn't any new evidence, if he doesn't have evidence, there isn't anything that happened, because if anything had happened, he would have filmed it, guaranteed.
Okay. Well, there seems to me to be 2 primary issues here. There's the time of the license, and Shalina said that she would be kind of relatively content with a shorter license period to 12:30, for example. Think about that for a minute. Also, how are we going to deal with this pavement business? Because that's a really massive issue here. It's been a massive issue throughout all the other licensing hearings as well. I know you've got the barrier, but is there anything we can do? Is there anything that can be done to basically mitigate all this stuff with the pavement?
Sure. I think particularly the main issue that Collier has actually genuinely brought up in a genuine capacity, because obviously there's lots of very strange things that he'll make allegations against us for being a place for illicit behaviour like drug taking, etc. That's all complete fabrication. The only thing that he's actually brought evidence about is the volume of people, like you say, outside, and that has been directly addressed by adding 1 more security and adding a road barrier. So we directly addressed the issue at the last hearing. We're now having another hearing to address the issue of a discrepancy in our application, only due to human error in our last application, which human errors do happen, by the way. So I think it's fine that happens. That's not indication of us being bad licensees making an application. We've addressed all of those issues by putting in place a policy that will only show positive signs of change. We haven't had anything for Collier to video, and obviously he is always there when anything ever happens. Hence why he was there on Saturday night. He is there every single moment, videoing us consistently, unrelentingly, waiting for the moment where we slightly slip up, and he will be there. So we've addressed, since we in the last hearing we addressed those issues, and he hasn't had anything to say. Why he hasn't got any evidence?
And also why he submitted evidence from before the last hearing and claimed it was afterwards.
Yeah, and that's testament to how vexatious Collier actually is. The fact that he's submitting evidence with a fake date on it, and then Hackney Licensing are looking at that date stamp on that photograph and proving that he's vexatious, but still somehow we're still listening to him. This is the bizarre thing. Anyway.
Yeah, we're going to pursue
it. It's very frustrating. We will pursue it legally, but it's been a real burden on our mental and physical health really over the last 3 years.
So the front of the building is the smoking area as well, which is limited to 7. Is that right? Yeah. Limited to 7. Amanda, is it usual to put a sort of condition on how many people can be standing outside the venue, like at all, or not?
Only for smoking is mainly that, usually you'd only have 1 for smoking. That will be the limiting. I mean, I'd have to.
It seems to me that the pavement issue is the big issue here. Noise is an issue as well to an extent, but it's the pavement issue with Shalina having to walk on the road and.
Well, this is where the security issue needs to be, can be addressed, because. Basically, they need to have sufficient security to monitor that area to make sure there isn't the traffic or the numbers of people outside that would cause any potential nuisance, noise, or anything else. So they do need it's their SIA or whoever should be monitoring the outside external areas as well as internal areas. So,
do you want to come back in that, boys?
There is a condition, Councillor Gilbert Smith. If you look. It's now conditioned, the rope barrier.
Yeah, where is that? Where is that?
On page 7, on officer observation.
8.1 of the report will have the list of conditions, and it's in there. 8.1 of the report.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So
can you just read it? Can you read it out for me?
About no.
Yeah. Okay. Just bear with me.
Yeah. Sorry.
Just I'm trying to scroll through all these pages. It's like takes ages.
Okay. Sorry. Bear with me.
Oh yeah.
Do you want me to read
Yeah,
it out? I've got it in front of me. Condition 5, road barrier, if permitted by the relevant council department, close brackets, and security personnel to ensure smoking and queuing customers do not encroach onto the pavement.
Yeah, that's the normal thing. We don't encourage queuing. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that will cover
and there's
everything.
A door supervisor that says 1 SIA door supervisor for every 30 to 100 customers present.
Yeah.
And there's a condition, no remittance from 2300 hours Sunday to Thursday, and from 2 to Friday and Saturday. We might 2 o'clock is when they shut, so we might want to look at that. I think we discussed that earlier. Perhaps we might want to take that back to midnight, because obviously this is before the terminal outlaw was brought back to 2 on a Fridays and Saturdays.
If I
Yeah, that's what the applicant has proposed at the present time. But it will be for you to decide whether or not you accept those.
Also, we need to change the terminal hour on the change that on the Sunday, because it's gone. It's shutting at midnight.
Yeah.
And it says no remittance after midnight. So presumably if they're shut, they can't remit anybody. Hopefully.
Okay. Guys, you want to come back on some of that?
This is incredibly detailed. I'm sorry if this is too detailed, but I'm more than prepared to share any documents. There's an entire email and phone call train of me trying to establish a road barrier, which took me to the street scene, who then recommended someone else. Eventually, I did get a confirmation on the phone from someone who said, just put it out there. That's absolutely fine. So obviously that will be in place. I also spoke to both Premier Inn and the council about using the side passageway, which we bettered by clearing it all up, made it safe by removing certain debris that was there, should we say. What we're going to try and do is, once we've opened that and we've made that safe and lit it properly, perhaps reapply to change our number of smokers we're allowed outside, just so they can go down that alleyway, which will hopefully allay any noise problems.
Yeah, and just remind me, what's the capacity of the venue, basically, and how many security staff do you normally have on?
It's 150. Per 100, we have one member of security. But it's 150.
Have you been happy with the way
we ever have more than 80 roughly? One person controlling outside one.
Yeah. Have you been happy with the way that security have been operating out there?
Entirely. None of the staff or me or anyone has had any complaints.
People walking past can walk past perfectly fine. They don't have to go on the road or anything.
Since the last hearing.
Since the last hearing, we've had, as I say, we've had 1 or 2 security, door security every single night that we've been open.
Yeah.
And I can send any of that information through. I can leave it.
So we've directly addressed the issues that were brought up at the last hearing and made sure we dealt with them professionally.
Yeah. And just on the hours, how do you feel about going to 12:30? I'm just asking.
I mean, I think it would very much change the kind of program that we want to put on. I mean, as we were applying for far later than that in this application, and we've already conceded many of the hours, we're essentially trying to go back to what we were programming for the last 3 years. Programmed very successfully with very little complaints. As I say, the only complaints we've ever got are from someone who, if anything, is vexatious because they're bitter about the fact that they used to run this venue. So we've successfully run that program, and obviously, if we were to we have to just change everything we've done and completely shift our entire program around a new time.
And the condition that Councillor Patrick mentions about kind of sort of people coming in after a certain time, you're happy to maybe think about something like that, yeah?
Provided the hours were, I think it was 2 all licensed activity stops, which the police put as a conditional. We met halfway on that. Provided that But that with the hour, I think we'd be okay with introducing some kind of no readmittance.
Because obviously we're concerned about the cumulative impact in all kinds of different ways.
Yeah, sure, of course.
You know,
I think it would be unnecessary to bring in something, a policy like that, because of the fact that pretty much most of the time events on the weekend are ticketed, and then you're arriving and you're not going to pay entry later anyway, or you're not going to arrive after the music has happened anyway. So we don't really have people coming late for the last. It might just end up complicating things in the way of just how you manage the front, and people just coming and going, being able to go to the shop to buy a pack of cigarettes, for instance, or just going to the smoking area, and any kind of exchange of people might just complicate it. But I mean, if that's something you want, then for sure we're perfectly happy to implement that.
And just briefly on the reason why why we really want it to be a minimum of 2 a.m. until we can sell alcohol up until, as an economic point, basically the model of the entire organisation is that part of the income from the bar funds the rest of the charity, in order for us to fulfil our charitable objectives of the advancement of the arts as a public benefit. We would slip below making a profit that can be given to that organisation, where we'd have to close at 12 on a Friday and Saturday. It would. I mean, this has been financially a very difficult time, and that would be kind of. I think. Yeah, it would be very difficult for us to continue.
Essentially, the busier nights on the weekend are the ones that subsidise the ability for us to be able to put on the rest of the programme. They subsidise workshops and classes and screenings and talks. So if we don't have the busier Friday, Saturday events, then it's going to be harder for us to do the rest of the programme.
Yeah. And what about half one?
Again, I think.
I mean, every hour later is going to reduce our revenue stream. So it's going to be cutting back at that, and also reduce what we can programme for weekend.
Gilbert, Mr. Newman wants to come in.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Newman.
Thank you, Chair. Could I just reinforce, please, at this point, that we did agree hours with the police after some robust talks. The police didn't have any fears about dispersal or problems of other pubs that might or places that may be open at that time. We've also spoken with environmental health. Only Mr. Chewett is standing here from the authorities. I'd just like to make that point, and also whilst my clients are near the cumulative impact area, they are not in it. In fact, they're a little way down. And I'd also like to point out, I know you're blinded a little bit, but Miss Ginner also had her hand up for some time.
Sorry, folks. Miss Ginner, would you like to come in? Sorry about that. I just don't see an S. That's it.
Hello, hi. I think my point probably is past now. I think I just wanted to come in on the people outside point and just say that, you know, sort of on the one hand, it's like I haven't provided enough evidence, and on the other hand, someone's there filming all the time. But I don't generally tend to take my phone out when I'm walking home late, so that's one thing. But I just feel that there has been a limit, I think, of 7 smokers out there throughout the whole time set have been operational, and there's always more people, and I get that they might not all be smoking, or they might be coming and going or whatever. But if there could be something, I think the barrier would be really good, but I think there has to be some sort of, I don't know what we can do to ensure that there are only 7 people, because that's just not been my experience when I've been walking home or walking past. And the other point I just wanted to make, I don't know if it's relevant, but I've never worked in Collier's Bar. I'm a solicitor. I might have been in there. I go to Dalston Curve, and I've sort of helped out there as well. I've been a resident for a while, so I do know people who own establishments in the area. So I'm a bit old now to be working behind the bar, I'm afraid.
Okay, thank you for that. Folks, I feel that we've kind of reached sort of the end of the discussion phase. Councillor Patrick, are you in agreement with that?
Yeah, I think so.
Chair, I'd just like to ask if you could just double check with the applicants what their view is about, you know, are they going to be able to control the outside area? You know, will they have a sufficient security staff out there? Can they only have 7 people out there? Will they be able to control it to that extent? I don't know.
Yeah.
Since the last hearing,
can you speak to that, please?
Since the last hearing, we have very much directly addressed this problem, and there is no evidence, there has been no issue since then. So we've directly addressed the issue with more security, and then since then we have only had 7 people outside.
So any kind of any sort of
we've got very much proof of a track record, a very positive track record since the last hearing, that there's been no issues.
That's a condition that was put in place, and we implemented it.
And we implemented it in a very successful way. So I think, if anything, just our actions speak louder than words. You know, we've actually we've done it for the last 6 months, and it's worked incredibly well. And no one, apart from the vexatious representation that is sitting here today, has an issue with it. So, and he's submitted evidence that is old evidence to try and once again prove something. Yeah, maybe it's going in a circle.
So yeah, in answer to your question, yes.
Yes, absolutely, definitely, we can do. We've successfully shown that we can do. Yeah.
Okay, great. Councillor Patrick, are you happy now to move on to closing remarks?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, folks. Let's move on to closing remarks then, please. If we could start with licensing.
Thank you, Chair. Just to reiterate the point, really, in the opening submission that I made, the license, obviously there has been one here before. It expired, it's time limited, and this new license seeks to replace that or reissue that license, if you like. But obviously the policy around core hours is in place in the council statement of licensing policy. Just a quick point on the issue about smoking. I don't know if it would help, but if you are minded to grant, and if the applicant is willing to, they could maybe just clearly identify a smoking area outside, even if it's just with signage for customers, for smokers to be directed to stand in a particular place, and separate those from other people queuing to get in, or other activity outside. Maybe that would make it a bit more defined as to who is smoking and who isn't.
Is that a typical practice? I mean, on a public pavement?
It can be a practice, yeah, but the pavement along here, just looking at it now, it is quite narrow.
Yeah.
So maybe that would just help with the order outside the front of the premises.
Yeah. Okay. And what's your overall feeling about this? Sorry to put you on the spot.
Well, we've had the site before. I mean, there are obviously some issues that we've heard about tonight, and I think for us in licensing, it should maybe be a premises that we pay a bit more attention to when we're out conducting visits, etc. But I think, you know, it is somewhere that had a license before, so I think the applicants as well maybe got the premises for a bit longer than they thought they would have, so they're back again, looking to keep it going for a couple more years. So all in all, I guess on balance, I think it's not really a new venture in that respect. It's a continuation of something that was there previously.
Okay, great. And maybe some closing comments now from Collier, please, and Shalina. Collier, closing comment from you? Hello?
Collier?
Yep, hi.
Yeah, just a couple of, a minute or two.
Closing comment is, thanks for listening to me. And I wish the boys the best of their luck with their venture. You know, I think tirelessly over the past 3 hearings, you know, I've also learned, you know, in terms of understanding the system of licensing, the committee, you know, and issues which I've encountered that I've tried to voice out in, you know, the best logical way possible, in honesty and with dignity. You know, I've seen it to a logical conclusion, and I'm grateful for the fact that, you know, I've been honest, and I'm happy to move forward. And I've been now looking forward to working with the police to make sure that, you know, hopefully I retrieve my property, and the guys won't have any issues with me. And I'm hoping that they've learned their lessons from, you know, Saturday night's incident, to possibly, you know, just step up with security, you know, in terms of what they're looking to put in place with the ropes and provisions for public safety. I'm wishing them the best of luck with it, you know, and I am 100% not vexatious, and I'm looking forward to actually, you know, a logical conclusion to all of this.
Collier, can I just ask you a straight question and try and just give me a straight answer? What would you like to happen there?
Honestly, I think the last 6 months, in view of the fact previously with their previous license, which has been 2:30 and now they're looking for 2 o'clock, I think definitely lesser hours to actually they can show, you know, coherent responsibility, apart from blaming me for pointing out the obvious. You know, it takes a lot of strain, and even sometimes I feel indignified actually in terms of my whole history with the property, to stand at a hearing or to submit documents. You know, I don't want to be blamed for, you know, issues that I can see blatantly that sometimes maybe passers-by or other residents don't have the strength or time or understanding of the system in terms of protocol to make complaints. You know, just do the right thing. You've had enough chance now to get experience in terms of managing that property, understanding the location where it is. It is very close to the special policy area, and it has to be looked at. And I'm really happy that they've viewed it to it. I said that it's something that enforcement would need to look at. And I think if they do play a close eye to that property, especially the back door, in view of the things I've spoken about, they'll also be able to work with SET to manage that property so that the councils is not brought into disrepute of turning a blind eye to certain premises, you know. And if they can all work together, I think I shouldn't have anything to say. And it'd be a joy to see them in the high street utilizing, you know, a creative project that could be of benefit to everybody without making blames in terms of I, myself, or anybody else pointing out situations which, you know, can cause public safety or potential incidents.
Yeah. And what are reasonable hours in your mind?
I think honestly, you know, I think previous hearings, you know, in speaking about Sharon's point, I've submitted documentation and they've been rewarded for bad behavior and made promises. I think they've had a quiet 6 months, hence the reason why there has been less issues. And I think it was a massive risk. And the only reason I walked into their premises again is because of the coronavirus situation, that I felt implicitly they were taking a great risk in having people in that venue. So I'm thinking that if you're going to reward them with their bad behavior, and I don't think they should get more than 1 o'clock. Honestly,
okay.
1 o'clock would be fair.
Okay. Shamina, thank you. Thank you for that. Shamina, would you like to come in and with a closing remark at all?
Yes, thank you. Thanks, Councillor Gilbert and Councillor Sharon, for giving me the opportunity to speak, and the licensing team and SET and their representative. I think things have been better while it's been quieter. I do prefer, I don't think I've made any attempt to hide the fact that I'm more comfortable with reduced hours. I'm more comfortable with there being, I think that having a smoking area or something that's monitored so that, you know, the pavement is narrow, so there's less people, there's less overspill. And, you know, I just would rather not have to navigate a whole crowd when I walk past there. That's one of my main concerns. Another concern again is litter. Because, you know, a venue with 150 capacity, that's an awful lot of people, especially in this environment. So I just want to have some comfort that the venue is going to be run responsibly and we're not going to have issues. And I want to, you know, feel that everyone's safe both inside and out. I think that's about it, really. I'm trying to think if there's any other points I want to make, but I think that's it.
Okay, well, thank you for your time. That's great. And Mr. Newman, and maybe, I don't know if the SET guys want to speak and you want to speak very briefly. Councillor Patrick,
I'll go first.
At all?
No, it's all right. I mean, I didn't know if anyone wants to come. No, it's new evidence. We keep hearing it's been quiet, but just checking the application, there's actually been, I think, 4 10s that went on to 6 o'clock in the morning since the last application was granted. Yeah, so 14th of December, 22nd of December, and the 23rd of February, and they went on to 6 o'clock, which is...
Yeah. Okay. That's noted. Okay, Mr. Newman, how do you want to play this? Do you want to come in and the set boys come in, or do you just want to complete for them?
I'll come in first, if I may.
Okay.
Please. I don't tend to repeat what I've said before in terms of Act and why it should be granted, given they've had this license before. I want to talk about anomalies. I want to talk about Collier mentioning minimal disturbance. I want to comment on the concern over the wrong date, it would appear, for a video. Also, Collier has also mentioned that the only reason he went in was because of coronavirus. Yet earlier, the only reason the only reason when he went in was suspicion that that he was investigating unlawful licensable activity, which it was not. There's been a plethora of support for this premises before, and there is we have adduced an antique bar up the road, and a resident have supported it in this instance. And again, it's only the two same residents. And I would also add, the police have received a complaint, I know, from at least one of the people here, and I know that they have focused on the premises and they have given it due attention, and they have decided that with the conditions agreed and the hours agreed, that that they are satisfied that the licensing objectives won't be undermined with those conditions and those hours. So I would recommend this. I would politely, respectfully ask that this license be granted, just looking at the facts.
Okay, thank you very much. And by the way, we have noted that all supporters and objectors submissions. So, guys, over to you now for your little summing up.
Well, thank you very much, Smith. Well, as David said, it feels almost more like a continuation of our last license, minus the slight hiccup we had with the hours in our last application. We do feel that financially, 2 o'clock is the earliest we could do in terms of generating enough income to support our artists who have the studios upstairs and the artists who use our space as a platform for their emerging talents, etc. We're happy to work as closely as possible with licensing and police and the council. I have email streams with numerous people, and I'd like to work even closer as the licensee. There was no fresh evidence since the last hearing has emerged. What I will be taking very seriously is the trespassing on our venue. And I do have a slightly similar coronavirus coming into the space we to be slightly paradoxical. But other than that, the fact that the busiest period is, of course, leading up to Christmas, which was just after we got our last license, we've received no complaints. We had 3 temporary events notices in that time till 6 o'clock in the morning. Again, received no complaints from anyone. And just to finish, it's been talked about kind of how much time people have spent on Dalston. Now, Josh here is born and bred in Stoke Newington, and I'm from just slightly further up in North London, and Roland from East London. So thanks very much.
Thank you.
Okay, great, thank you.
Before we end, I wanted to just quickly talk about the issue of having that area outside the premises, a defined area. Do we want a condition, Mr. Newman? What's your view about a condition for that, or not? Or how can we do that? Which would you be prepared, or would the applicant be prepared to have a defined area outside the premises?
I thank you for the question. Firstly, I would say that a roped off area is going to solve a lot of issues now that they have that option, but I'll leave it to the clients in this case.
Okay.
Yeah, we'd be happy with any condition like that to be added to the license.
Yeah, and just to go back to the sort of no entry time after, whatever time what time is good for you, do you think?
I'm sorry, I thought something was agreed there. I've been
Yeah,
trying
it was
to look through the
midnight.
notes.
Midnight.
Yeah.
But that doesn't work for the Sunday, right?
No, it's midnight Fridays and Saturdays, and it'd have to be, I suppose, 11. Sunday. No, it's a different hour on Sunday, isn't it?
Half 11 on a Sunday or something like that.
I'd say.
Sorry, can you clarify what was agreed about these hours of being reduced? I thought the police had
No, not reduced. This is no further entry.
Oh right, okay.
Sorry, no further entry. No new entries after midnight. Fridays and Saturdays.
Yes.
After 11 and after 11 o'clock. Every other night. Is it still midnight on Sunday? Yeah, it is, isn't it? Yeah. So 11 o'clock every other night.
Yeah. That sound good to you guys?
We'd like to, well, I'll hand it to you.
I mean, from my perspective, it seems totally unnecessary to add in an extra condition like that, considering we've had such a good track record for the last 6 months, and 3:10 till 6 a.m. and there's been absolutely no problem. I wouldn't really see that there's any real reason to add in a clause like that, and it's just going to, like I say, complicate things.
But that does give members reassurance. That gives members reassurance.
But there is a condition already at 8.1, which talks about this re-entry. So I think
that's the wrong hours on it.
That's all they're trying to amend, the hour on that.
Yeah.
Have you got the papers? There's a condition that was agreed with the police, I think, as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
About re-entry. So it's just amending that condition to make sure that the hours are correct.
It's only amending it for the Friday and the Saturday.
Running out of battery.
It's the first condition at 8.1.
Yeah, it's amending it for the Friday and the Saturday, because at the moment it says.
Have you seen this?
It's at the moment condition 1 says no re-emittance from 2300 hours Sunday to Thursday and 0200 hours Fridays and Saturdays. Well, since 0200 is now the terminal hour, we need to bring that back, and I suggested we bring that back to midnight, and it stays as it is from Sunday to Thursday.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Okay.
That's fine. Yeah. Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Happy.
It's exactly the same. So you
one more time for me, please.
Sorry.
Just repeat it one more time, please.
So it is condition 8.1.
Yeah, I've got that. I meant the hours. I meant the hours again. Just to clarify.
The hours. So I'm not. All I want to do is change the terminal hour. Sorry. It says no re-emittance. No re-emittance from 2300 hours Sunday to Thursday, which is fine.
Yeah.
And then the thing I want to change, and it says 200 hours Fridays and Saturdays. And I want to change the 200 hours to midnight.
Yes, that's right. Yes.
Because 200 hours now is the closing, is the terminal.
Yeah. No, good. That's fine. Just making sure I have the right. Okay.
So that was 2 hours before the 4 o'clock they were asking for. So if we bring that back to midnight, that's exactly 2 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's fine. Thank you.
Per what was agreed with the police. So there's no there's no difference in what they were asking for and what they agreed with the police. It's exactly the same condition, but the hours changed because they now they're going to shut it at 2 rather than 4.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
It's just a tidying up of the hours. That's all.
Yeah. Okay, everyone happy? So now we move on to final clarifications. Any final clarifications before we conclude the meeting? Anyone? I can't see. So if anyone can see anybody with their hand raised, just let me know, please.
No.
Everyone content?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you everyone for attending this licensing subcommittee meeting. I hope you all felt that you had an opportunity to kind of get involved and to say what you wanted to say. I feel I've given you all the time to do that. So if all the people that are not members and members of the council could leave now, please, that would be fantastic. So thank you very much indeed, everyone.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.